thanks CK for organizing this session. It's great, and also see so many people and so actively in this kind of like a particular kind of like occasion, and so just wish everyone is safe and healthy. I think it's very important. So what I would like to talk is from the mobility transport mobility's perspective, and so I would like to talk a few kind of key area. And so two is kind of like a major functions. One is the OTA, and so the other one is the data processing. And so Madhukan-san had already addressed quite a lot of issues. I think that's probably giving me a very good background about kind of like discussing things. And the other part is also I would like to addressing is the issue, and so I think it's already been addressed about the safety and security, and also there's another very important issue is about the trustworthy. I think kind of like from the perspective, and so you guys probably already heard a lot of things about the regulations such as GDPR, CCPA, and so for those is mainly for the protection of the user's privacy is concern from Europe and also from California area. I believe, and other countries also had a similar kind of like a regulation, and so combining and so this perspective and so with the security and the safety, and so I would like to talk about the things. It's from the generality here, right? So I think when we talk about for the car, and so car is communicate, and so car is driving, and so a car need to detect this, communicate with the traffic, basically the utility kind of area. In particular here, if we talk about autonomous car, right? So those area, and so we need to start to thinking about that, and so for the autonomous car, and so car need to be able to detect the basically the people walking around, and also the people riding bicycle, and also the other cars. And the car will be communicate with the cloud. So on the cloud side, this is not only just a single kind of like transport platforms kind of like a cloud, and that the transportation platform also need to talk to the other services. For example, like the data can be shared with insurance, and so insurance could using the data and so to supporting things like UBI, right? Usage-based kind of like insurance, and also if this kind of like any kind of like payment is involved, and so payment system can be also used. It's not only just only a kind of like a single cloud cycle, and so but the cloud need to also communicate with the other cloud. So we can see, and so the kind of like a two bidirectional, these two different kind of like key functions. One is OTA. OTA is pushing the content and so into the vehicle, and the other one is the data processing. The data processing is process the data and then pushing the data back to the cloud, and then you can apply certain kind of like intelligent kind of like doing the machine learning or doing the data analytics to find out insight. So I just want to using kind of like three application examples, and using example to illustrate, and so what I kind of like how these things will be work together. So one is the consider here is if we have kind of like a UBI, basically is we have the young driver. The young driver is only being allowed to drive within certain time period, and also with the certain kind of like location, and so the geolocation. In that case, and so based on the insurance policy, and so the policy will be pushing to the car, right? So this is one case. Second is about the cyber security attack, and so today, and so a lot of attack is basically from the kind of like entertainment unit and the IBI system, and we need to detect those kind of patterns, and then try to need to discover it. Second one is once this discovered pattern being detected, and that need to be distributed into car, and then car can detect that issue. And so for the car sharing issue, kind of like cases. So the case is like this, and so if you have a car being shared in the family, for example, And so while you have a different kind of driver and to drive the car, and so then you need to using different kind of like insurance policy associated with that driver. So go to next slide, please. So here is we're talking about the general concept about the OTA. So what is the challenge of what the OTA facing is there's kind of like millions of cars you need to support in this if you want to support the OTA. But with the complexity we already discussed, and so about the car will have all the different kind of artifacts. And the artifact is not only just the firmware, and so we have the software, and also you have the configuration, and also the possibilities you can also have is you can have the rules, configuration, and also you have if you have the kind of like a machine learning model you learned from the other cars, and you'll be able to pushing those assets into the car, and so then you have this very strong kind of like a dependency, and also the compatibilities of the versions. And so, and while you pushing the content into the car, and so it also give possibilities for the attack, so the security attack, right? So the safety and the security is become very big important kind of issues. For the general kind of issue, kind of like OTA, what we do is there's a kind of like a basic sequence about doing the OTA. First is you upload the package and so into the cloud, and then you validate and so that package, and then you're doing the package creation, and then you will start the schedule, basically arranging or you update and so into the car, basically find out and so which car you need to update it, and then you're pushing the update into the car. And so in the car, and so you download the package, and then you will find, and so basically is find what is the which ECU or you're doing the update with the TCU, and in these cases, and so you will install the software or firmware or the content into the proper unit, and then you validate it. So in the case here is if certain things is not done properly, you need to roll back. So this is about OTA. So go to next slide, please. So about the data, and so we already talked about it. Really the challenge here is this could be potentially kind of like a very big volume of data we need to handle. And so potentially that could be 4 TB, and so in one day. In that case, pushing the data into the cloud is basically impossible. We have to do supporting certain kind of data processing in the car on the edge side. But what happened here is what kind of data you need to process in the car, what kind of data you need to store, what data need to pushing back to the cloud, and also doing the analytics things on the cloud. So that need to be controlled based on the content. So next slide, please. So I would like to discuss about three major kind of like a challenge and also opportunities, and also some things we are working on. So after kind of like we have to doing the basically providing the OTA and providing the data thing, and so very important thing we found out is what we need to supporting is a closed loop. So here is I just giving an example, and so about the cyber security attack, and so is the case here is first is if we already have a certain kind of like detect the pattern, and so we will dispute those patterns and dispute the related services into the car. And the car will download this, we're using the OTA to pushing those into the car. And so car will using those services and to do detect if there's any kind of like attack kind of occurred or potential attack occurred. And if those cases happened, and all this attack issue will be reported to the cloud, and then people can review that. And also the potential attack cases will also be pushed into the cloud. And on the cloud side, people could using the machine learning or the other algorithms to discover and so the kind of like attack pattern, and then created the services to detect those kind of like attack pattern and dispute it again. And so this is a kind of like a circle. And as you can see here is that, so the data processing and the OTA operations is a circle, and this circle is connected the cloud and the vehicle. Go to the next slide, please. So what we needed is kind of like a fully dynamic kind and also distributed kind of infrastructure. So in the case here is what if we taking an example of the car sharing, right? So the case is the car itself is kind of like a self independent, and so but what happened is all the rules need to be driven from the cloud. So with the car sharing, and so if we have a different kind of driver into driving the different car, and so based on the different kind of insurance associated with the driver, different insurance policy need to be associated. And in the case here is if the car can detect what kind of users, which driver is driving the car, and the different kind of like insurance association rules will be associated with the driving behavior. And using this way, the car could kind of like making the decisions locally, but on the other side is all this policy and the rules is also being driven from the cloud as well. And all the associated data will be detected or issue being detected will be reported to back to the cloud. And so if there's any issue being detected, it will be reported. And so if we think about, and so from the data's perspective, we need to maintain the data. Basically is we need to think about it's not only just a current. We need to think about what happened as a history, and also we need to think about what is things that need to be done in the future. And all this planning and execution, and also the machine learning and the discovery need to be done in this kind of like independent, but also in the dynamic manner to managing the different compositions of different organizations and the different artifacts. Next slide, please. So we already talk about the safety and security. Those are the very important issue. And so I would like to address a little bit about the trustworthy. And so with all the regulation, that is very important is who and when and how long you're using the data. And so the data usage and those kind of regulations become very important. And so what we need to do is we need to really control the access and the monitoring and providing the auditing of the data usage. Okay, so go to the last slide. Yeah. So here, just giving a few kind of like issues, right? So one is what we need is we need to providing a kind of like a closed loop, kind of like architecture and the platform. And we need to supporting the dynamic and so the distributed working manner between the cloud and the edge. And so that is in the vehicle. And also we need to supporting the trustworthy and combining with the security and the safety. And so we already had done quite a number of work and so related to those areas. And so really looking forward to have the further discussion and collaboration with you guys.